Now let's work on the final problem in your practice exam. Problem 6, which is process costing. In process costing, there's only one way to solve process costing, to go through the 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once we go through the 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we'll put the answers into the computer. So we have this Builder Products uses the weighted average method in its process costing system. It manufactures a caulking compound that goes through 3 processing stages prior to completion. Information on work in the first department, cooking, is given below for May. So the first set production data is units, and the second set cost data is in dollars. So I'm going to look at the requirements later, because as I said, there's only one way to solve a process costing problem. So step 1, reconcile the physical flow of units. So to reconcile the physical flow of units, we have units in our beginning work in process. Plus units started. So we're given those information. So we're given 10,000 pounds in the beginning work in process and 100,000 units started. So the two of them together are going to be the units to account for. And the units to account for is going to be 110. I'll put the commas in so you can see the numbers a little bit better. Now, on the other side, to reconcile to that, we have to take the units completed and transferred out, and our ending work in process, and those should equal the units accounted for. Now, it is a rule in process costing that unless you have spoiled units, the units to account for have to equal the units accounted for. So we are given our ending work in process, which is 15,000. We don't know the units completed, but we do know that it has to add to 110,000. So I'm just going to find the number that adds to 15,000 that equals 110,000. I believe that is 95,000. So it looks like the 95,000 plus the 15,000 equals the 110. So it looks like I'm in good shape. And I have completed my first step, reconcile the physical flow of units. Step 2, cost to account for. So we want to account for our materials cost, and we want to account for our conversion cost. So we're going to take the costs in beginning work in process, and then take the costs added. All of those numbers are given. Our materials cost in our beginning work in process is 1,500. Our conversion cost in our beginning work in process is 7,200. I'm just taking the numbers right over here from our cost data. Materials costs added during the month is 154,500. Conversion costs added to the month is 90,800. So I just added together for the costs to account for. So for materials, I'll just put the commas in once again so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to add the materials cost together, and I'm going to add the conversion cost together. So for materials, we have $156,000 of cost to account for. For conversion, we have $98,000 of cost to account for. And now I'm going to add the total materials and total conversion costs to account for, and we get to a total of $254,000. I'm going to put this number in yellow right now because that number is very important. The whole part of this problem is to figure out which piece of this $254,000 goes into the units completed and how much of the $254,000 goes into ending work in process. Step 3 is to calculate the equivalent units of output. This is why step 1 is important, because our output is the right side of step 4, the units completed and the ending work in process. So we're going to calculate our equivalent units of output for materials and for our conversion costs. So first we're going to start off with the units completed. Units completed are really nice because they're 100%. So I multiply the 95,000 by 100% for materials, 95,000 multiplied by 100% for conversion. So our units completed represent 95,000 full and complete units. Now it's the units in the ending work in process. Those are the ones that we have to calculate the equivalent units for. So the first thing I do is go back to my materials. So I'm told that for my ending work in process, at May 31st, right over here, pounds in process, May 31st, my materials are 60% complete and my conversion costs are 20% complete. Those are given right over there in the problem, and I have 15,000 units in that ending work in process. So for my materials, since they're 60% complete, I was looking at the 15,000. Since they're 60% complete, that is given right over there in the problem, I'm going to take the 15,000 units in the ending work in process and multiply that by 60%. So our 15,000 units that are each 60% complete are the equivalent of 9,000 full and complete materials units. Now in terms of conversion costs, we're told they're 20% complete. So I'm going to take the 15,000 units that are in the ending work in process, again, right from step 1, units completed 95,000, ending work in process 15,000, but they're not full and complete units. So I'm going to take the 15,000, multiply it by the 20% complete for conversion costs, and put that in the conversion column. And that's going to represent the equivalent of 3,000 units. So now, to calculate the total equivalent units, materials are 95,000 plus 9,000. So in terms of materials, we outputted the equivalent of 104,000 full and complete units. Even though it was 110, the 15,000 are partially complete, so they represent partially complete units. And the same thing with our conversion costs, 95,000 plus 3,000 gives us 98,000 conversion costs. So that was our step 3. Now moving on to step 4, we calculate the cost per equivalent unit. So we just take step 2, divide by step 3. So in step 2, materials, 156,000 in costs to output the equivalent of 104,000 units. For conversion, we spent $98,000 to output the equivalent of 98,000 units. I think that division is going to be pretty easy. So in step 4, we're going to get the cost per equivalent unit. So for materials, conversion, and total. So in terms of materials, we take the 156,000 and we divide by 104,000. And for our materials, we get $1.50 per unit. For our conversion cost, that's pretty easy. We take the 98,000 in costs, we divide by the 98,000 equivalent units, and of course, we're going to get $1 per unit. So, for our output based upon this calculation, one full and complete materials unit, 1 unit, full and complete takes $1.50 in materials and $1 in conversion costs. So one full and complete unit costs us $2.50. Now in step 5, we're just going to assign it based on not the full and complete units, but the equivalent units. So let's go and let's assign the costs. So in terms of materials, in our ending work in process, we have 95,000 materials units and 95,000 conversion units. So for our ending work in process, the units completed have 95,000 materials units, and 1 materials units costs $1.50. Our ending work in process, our units completed, 95,000. I'm sorry, this should be the units completed, not the ending work in process. Then in conversion costs, 95,000 units in the units completed, and our conversion costs cost $1. So for the conversion costs, we take 95,000, we multiply that by $1, and of course we get 95,000. So our units completed have $142,500 in materials costs, 95,000 in conversion costs. So our units completed, our finished goods inventory, is going to have a total cost of $237,500. Now, instead of the units completed, let's move on to the ending work in process. Now the ending work in process has 2 different numbers. Our units completed, our finished goods has the same numbers, but our ending work in process has 9,000 and 3,000. So for our ending work in process for materials, I'll write them over again so you can see in conversion. For materials, we have 9,000 full and complete materials units. Once again, that comes from step 3. 1 full and complete materials unit costs $1.50. So our ending work in process has $13,500 in materials costs. Now we're going to do the same thing for conversion costs. So going to step 3, our ending work in process has 3,000 units in our ending work in process, full and complete, related to conversion costs. And our conversion costs cost $1 each, $1 a unit. We calculated that in step 4. So our ending work in process has 13,500 in materials costs, 3,000 in conversion costs, and now we have the ultimate reconciliation to what is up above. So I'm going to take the finished goods, the units completed, 237,500, and to that the ending work in process, 16,500, and notice that I get 254,000. So as I said from the start, the whole point of this problem is to decide how much of the 254,000 goes to finished goods. The answer is 237,500. And how much of the 254 goes to ending work in process? The answer is 16,500. Now that we've got everything done, let's just put the answer into the computer. So equivalent units of production for materials and conversion for May, that is going to be step 3. So that is 104,000 and 98,000. Moving on to requirement 2. Requirement 2 is the cost per equivalent unit. That is going to be our step 4. That's $1.50 and $1. Hit like those as well. Go to requirement 3. Cost of ending work in process inventory. And that is going to be this one, our ending work in process. So our materials have 13,500 in our ending work in process. Conversion has 3,000. So we have a total of 16,500 in our ending work in process. Requirement 4. Cost transferred to the next department. That was our units completed. So that's this section right over here. So that is going to be 142,500 in materials, 95,000 in conversion, the total 237,500. And the last requirement, requirement number 5, cost to account for. So our cost to account for comes from step 2. So our cost to account for are going to be our costs in our beginning work in process. So our costs in our beginning work in process, we'll just add them together. Costs in our beginning work in process, $1,500 plus $7,200 gives us $8,700. And then our costs added into the process. And that was that second line, $245,300. So as we calculated before, there's $254,000 of cost to account for. The cost as accounted for, cost of ending work in process inventory, that is the 16,500, and the cost of units completed and transferred out, 237,500. We reconcile at 254 and 254, and we have now completed our final problem in the practice exam.